Okay, Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa ashabi ajma'in. Sorry for the delay. I don't know if you guys saw or are aware, but we're starting, inshallah, one of our goals is to have every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, to have food trucks here. Because I know that there's a lot of people that are trying to have like post moves or not trying to go very far for food. And we want to have them starting at 6 so that you can eat dinner early if you want to. You know, the whole like heartburn, 30 and up thing. And then also like up until 9 o'clock or 9:30. So tonight, I believe Halal Fusions is here. And so I was just making a loop around the parking lot to see where they were. And so inshallah, if you want to grab food from them, really encourage you to do so. I believe they're on the Musalla side of the building. So if you want to go grab after class, inshallah, they'll be there. Okay, Bismillah. So welcome home, everybody. Happy to see you here, alhamdulillah, as we continue our reading of the content of character, which is a compilation of ahadith, some narrations that were gathered by Shaykh Al-Amin Al-Mazrui, where he put together some focal points on developing character. Character, the definition of which is how we engage with each other, how we engage with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how we engage with Allah, and how we engage with ourselves. Right? So that's the complete view of character, comprehensive. Tonight's hadith, there's two narrations that we'll be going over tonight. The first of which we've talked about kind of piecemeal here and there, but this one really talks, it kind of comprehensively deals with this topic. And so we'll read from it, inshallah. The narration is from At-Tabarani. He says, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم استعينوا على الحوائج بالكتمان فإن كل ذي نعمة محسود. He says, استعينوا على الحوائج بالكتمان. The Prophet ﷺ begins by saying, seek any assistance that you need to when it comes to fulfilling your needs. And then he says, بالكتمان, which literally means in a state of privacy. We would say in English like discretion, right? With discretion. And so here the Prophet ﷺ, in the first part of the hadith, there's a really kind of beautiful human reality. The Prophet ﷺ is acknowledging that there will be times in which you will need to seek help from other people for things. You know, sometimes when it comes to religion, when it comes to faith especially, there are conversations about, you should trust in Allah and you should never ever rely on other people. You should not need help from other people. You should solely rely upon Allah and that's it. But actually, according to the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, part of relying upon Allah is also using the facilitation that Allah has provided in your life. So for example, if you're sick, you can make dua to Allah for shifa, but you can also go to the doctor, right? If you're in a difficult state, you can make dua to Allah to remove that state from you, to relieve you, but you can also go to the person that is the subject matter expert to help you, like a lawyer, an accountant, or whatnot. So we believe in our tradition, not only that it's okay, but that the Prophet ﷺ, he encouraged and he actually pushed us to be people that when it comes to needing help, that we should go and seek help from individuals. We should be those people that seek help from individuals. We should not ever think that we have to go alone by ourselves. And that's why he's even using the ista'inu, the plural. All of you, everybody, the entire idea of an ummah, of a community, is what? So that we can be there to help each other. When the Prophet ﷺ was describing the ummah, he described it, he said, it's kalbunyan, it's like a building. That one part of it strengthens the other part of it. It's interesting when you're constructing something. You guys ever built Legos before? May Allah protect us from Legos. Say Ameen. And our feet. Say Ameen. All right? So you're building Legos, and when you build the structure, when you build like the single wall, it's actually quite weak. It can't stand. You put it on a table, and like anything that touches it will knock it over. But then when you affix it or connect it to a second wall, it becomes stronger, right? The right angle. You can't push it over as easily. And then the third wall, and then finally the fourth wall. Once that fourth wall is there, now this structure, like you can't even knock it over. You have to roll the cube over. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he described Muslims as a building that يَشُدُّ بَعْدُهُمْ بَعْضًا, that part of them strengthen the other part. So we should always be people that see one another as this kind of resource. Not to the point of abuse, but we also need to be careful never ever to make people feel like they can't come to us. So there's really two parts to this. Number one is that you shouldn't be shy. And number two is that a true believer, a Muslim, is the one who is like kind of always welcoming the idea of helping somebody else. They're not trying to push people away. And think about the list of people in your head. There are some people that you would probably never call to ask for a favor, because you know that if you ever did that, you would never be able to like live it down or repay them. And they would remind you of that. But there are some people that you feel so comfortable with and you feel so, like this kinship with, that you can call them and ask them for favors that you would actually maybe even be embarrassed to ask your family for. And so if somebody calls you and asks you for one of those favors, or texts you and asks you for one of those favors, instead of getting frustrated or annoyed or like put off by that, realize that it's such a blessing that they were able to think of you that comfortably. Because it's really humbling. It's very embarrassing to go to somebody and say, can I borrow some money? Can you help me out with this? I remember the first time someone texted me and asked me, can I borrow some money? And I remember being like, whoa, I was kind of shocked. And subhanAllah, it was one of my, how I always say I have older friends. It was one of my older friends. And he told me this exact same lesson I'm sharing with you. He said, think about how comfortable this brother is that he came to you in this state of need, right? May Allah Ta'ala make us that person. I pray that we can all be the one that others think of when they need help. What an honor. In a state of misery or lowliness or humiliation, that person thinks, this one's gonna help me. They won't make me feel bad. They won't make me feel guilty for calling them. May Allah Ta'ala give us that. So he says, "Ista'inu ala hawa'ij bil kitman." Seek help with your needs, but at the same time, every person, right, that is seeking help, doesn't matter how comfortable they are, be discreet about it. Be discreet about it. And that discretion should be a part of your Islamic ethic. Discretion, there's so many reasons as to why. When I was reading this hadith with Shaykh Abdul Nasser and I was studying this text with him, and he said there's so many different, it's like a prism. Why do you think a person should be discreet when they seek help? What do you guys think? Why should you be discreet? And think about this in the 360 lens. Like, what do you think the reasons are that being private, having discretion is important when you ask for help? Huh? What do you mean by self-respect? Okay, good, because number one, there's a level of like your own dignity that you want to preserve. Okay, Islam encourages seeking help. It doesn't encourage begging. And there's a difference, right? So it encourages seeking help. There's a level of dignity and honor that you want to preserve within yourself, and maybe by extension, your family, okay, or your siblings, your parents, your children, and so on. So this idea of like publicly going and making a big spectacle, this is not talking about perhaps using crowdfunding and stuff like that. That's different. We're talking about like posting on stories, being public, almost confusing social media for your diary. Being discreet about these things is a prophetic ethic. Very good. Why? Because self-respect. What else? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so it's between two individuals. Maybe there's a witness just to make sure that everything's kosher, right? Halal. Maybe there's read the room. So maybe there's a witness to make sure everything's on the up and up, okay? Sure, but why? But why? Like, think about it. This is a character class. What about being discreet impacts the character of this moment, the etiquette of this moment? So you go to someone, yes, yeah. Okay, it could be you one day, right? So be discreet, because it could also be you that one day that's helping somebody else, okay? Very good. What about the other individual who you're asking? Let's say, for example, that you ask somebody for something and they can't do it for whatever reason. And now let's say you ask them in front of like 20 people. And they can't do it. Like, it's not a matter of choice. It's a matter of circumstance. Hey, can you host my family this weekend? Oh, gosh. Someone said, oh, gosh. I didn't say in-laws. I said, so your friend's family. I'm joking. I'm stuck. Okay? Can you host my, hey, can I borrow your car? This happens. Yeah, I got a bunch of family coming from out of town. Can I borrow one of your cars? I know that you're traveling. Okay? Now, let's say that someone else is using your car, or it's in the shop or something. I'm using a big favor on purpose. But you can't do it. It's already done. But there's 25 people now watching this whole interaction, or it's in a group chat, the WhatsApp chat, the worst, right? Do people forget you can text someone individually? You don't have to have that private convo in front of everybody. Now there's that pressure. And the pressure adds to the moment and makes the person feel this sense of what? Like, I have to, but I can't. And no matter what the person's response is, unless it's exactly fulfilling the request that's being asked, it's going to make that person look like a loser, like they've lost. Because why? They weren't generous. And what are you going to do? Are you going to sit there and explain your whole scenario? No, actually, I can't because of this, because of that. Or maybe you're just uncomfortable, right? So there's a hikmah, a wisdom that the Prophet ﷺ is saying, not only for the person that is asking, because why? Preserving your dignity. Maybe it could be a situation where you want to preserve the honor of yourself and your family, but also the person you're seeking help from. In the case they may not be able to deliver, you're no longer putting that pressure on them to where it'll be humiliating if they cannot deliver what you're asking for. Okay? Now, let's say, for the sake of argument, that you ask, the person says yes, and everything's, mashallah, good. Like, you get to, the favor is moving forward. But there's still those 20, 25 people that are watching. That's where the second part of the hadith comes in. He says, فَإِنَّ كُلَّ ذِي نِعْمَةٍ مَحْسُودٌ. Because, he says, every single blessing has the potential to be the object of envy. All right? Now, I'm not trying to trigger a bunch of paranoid crash outs tonight. I could go home and be scared that everyone... But as we've said before, envy is a real thing. And every single person in this room has the capacity to be the envier and the envied. So we need to seek Allah's protection from both sides. Number one, we ask Allah, oh Allah, and we're going to do the more important dua first. Oh Allah, don't make us ever one who envies other people. Why? Because that is a direct diametric opposition to being content. A content person doesn't have any room for envy. They're too content to envy other people. Instead of worrying about what other people have, they're so immersed in the pleasure of what they have and the gratitude of Allah of what they have. So we ask Allah, oh Allah, don't ever make us an envier. At the same time, we ask Allah to protect us from ever being the object of someone's envy as well. And that is because that is a bad place to be in terms of the barakah, the blessing and the pressure of that circumstance in your life or that thing in your life. So the Prophet ﷺ, he taught us there's a couple different methods that we take in order to protect ourselves from this. The first is that he taught us, of course, the du'as of protection against envy, that we should ask Allah to protect us by reading those du'as. Some of them include things like Ayatul Kursi, right? Allahu la ilaha illa huwal hayyul qayyum, and so forth. Others are the mu'awwadatain at the end of the Quran, right? Qul a'udhu bi rabbil falaq, qul a'udhu bi rabbin nas. Okay, these are the things that the scholars say you should recite them every night. Before you go to sleep, take 2 or 3 minutes. You know, before the TikTok algorithm gets you. Have you guys gotten to the point where the video tells you you've watched enough? That girl, she's like, hey, you should be asleep right now. It's okay, right? So before you get there, turn off your phone and say, Allahu la ilaha. And if you don't know it, that's okay. Guess what? YouTube, great friend for these types of things. You can put on the Ayatul Kursi, you can put on the last 4 quls. You can have it be read to you until you memorize it, inshallah. Keep listening to it every night, every night. Within a month, you're going to memorize it. Okay? This is a protection. The Prophet ﷺ taught us that this protects like a force field, like a security system around your blessings. And this is a way in which a person protects themselves. So that's one way. But a lot of times, and this is a very, very peculiar contradiction that we're living, a lot of times we take the means of like the spiritual remedy, the recitation remedy, but we don't use like the common sense logical remedy, which is what? Don't be a person that is constantly showing and boasting about what you have. as my mother would tell me, don't test people's ability to be patient with your blessings. Because every person has their breaking point. Every person. We really need to do the hard work of asking ourselves when we share the things that we share. Social media is an easy target, but we can even take this down to personal relationships. When we share the things that we share, why do we share them? What are we seeking? What are we gaining from that? And maybe we have to be honest with ourselves. Maybe it is the attention that we are seeking. Maybe we want people to see and to revel in the blessings that we are enjoying. There's a little bit of a human reality there. Sometimes something good happens to you, you want to share it. Allah in the Quran said this, وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. And with the blessings of your Lord, proclaim them. So it's not bad to want to share good news with people. You guys ever had good news before? How many of you have trouble keeping a secret? Yeah? Everyone look around. Make a mental note, right? Okay? All the spouses are looking at each other. Yeah. Sometimes it's tough. You have good news, you want to share it. So what's the prophetic etiquette? What's the character of sharing good news? There's a couple different questions you need to ask. Number one, the person that I'm sharing this news with, are they one of my supporters? Will they make dua for me? Will they be a person that will actually ask Allah to place barakah in the thing that I'm talking about with them? So if I tell this person the good news, are they sincerely going to pray for me? Now, this can be a little bit of a slippery slope because we're not here to judge anyone's faith. But there are certain individuals and certain gatherings where you can tell that maybe not every person in this gathering, if there's 15, 20 people here, is going to interpret this news the same way. And perhaps there will be people here that are not going to be the type of people that are thinking of me in that way where they will pray for me and pray for the blessing of this thing. So instantly through that first filter, now that circle has gotten smaller. The circle of people that you can share that good news with. And it's not a one-for-one equation. Sometimes there's news that's really, really secret and critical, and that circle is very small. And sometimes there's news that's a little bit less critical, a little bit less, intense, and you can make the circle a little bit bigger. And sometimes there's news that's generally good. Maybe it happens to everybody at some point or another, and you can share that with more people. But you be the judge. But number one is, will this person pray for me? Number two, and this takes a little bit of emotional intelligence. Shout out Sheikh Mikhail. This takes some emotional intelligence. Are the people that I'm sharing this with, are they going through a situation or circumstance where this particular news will inadvertently burn them and trigger something inside of them? Because the circumstance that they are in right now is struggling with this very reality. Will me nonstop talking about my wedding bother the person that is struggling to find someone to call their companion? Will me talking nonstop about the blessings and the burdens of parenthood be a heartburn for the people that are struggling to conceive? Will me talking about the burdens of homeownership bother the person that is struggling to pay rent? Do I have the emotional intelligence to read the room and to know that maybe this gathering is not the one that I should talk about this particular blessing with? Because why? Not because it's haram, but because I'm not a person with bad character. And I don't want to do that to this person. I don't want to test them, right? Now, yes, there's advice the other way, which is what? If somebody's experiencing good things, don't be a hater. Just because it's not your time doesn't mean that you should hate on somebody else who has their time. Say Allahumma barak, say mashallah, make dua for them. The angels say ameen to you, and all of you are going to be happy one day, inshallah. Okay, so we give advice to both sides. But we do need to remind the person that is being the one who is the object of blessing that it is simply a better choice in some scenarios to be quiet. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Man samata naja." Whoever is quiet is saved, is successful. Okay? And this is why Yaqub told his son Yusuf what? He told his son Yusuf, قال يا بني لا تقصص رؤياك على إخوتك فيكيدوا لك كيدا. This is a prophet telling his son, who is a prophet, who had this remarkable dream that was recognized by his dad. His dad knew what this dream meant. This dream is an anointment. It's a proclamation of your prophethood. And you have brothers. And these brothers did not have this dream. So you've been chosen. And he knew, he felt, he understood that this boy, Yusuf, is special. And he was almost waiting for the day that Allah would distinguish him as a messenger. And it happened. So as a result of that, he doesn't tell, the brothers, hey, your brother's a prophet. Deal with it. Right? I know a lot of us are getting triggered by the sibling competition. Your brother's a doctor. Deal with it. Your sister's this, honor roll, NHS, whatever, right? He didn't do that. He told the object of the blessing, the subject, rather, of the blessing, what? Be careful. Don't go tell your brothers. Because why? Because, as the Prophet ﷺ in another narration, shaitan runs through you like blood. He will fabricate and manipulate a person's thought and their mind and their heart to think in a way that even they will be embarrassed of. That even they, if it were brought forth, they would feel ashamed of. So Prophet Yaqub, he demonstrates this. Now, a couple of the scholars, they commented on this hadith and they shared a couple practical lessons. Number one, they said that an individual, if they want to know if they are wise, like a possessor of wisdom, they can instantly tell their wisdom by a few things. They listed a few things. They said, for example, like if they can control their anger, if they can be patient with their desires. They listed a few things. One of the things that they listed, Ibn Hajar, he says this, was if a person can be discreet in their life. They say real G's move in silence, like lasagna. So who can move in silence? Who can live their life in a state of silence? Not because you're paranoid and not because you're trying to hide, but because you simply are in the state of being grateful for your blessings that you don't want to disrupt that by showing anything off. Okay? And again, there are people where sharing will be a good thing because they will pray for the barakah of that. But there are others where you don't want to do that. And social media, I think we can all tell ourselves, like, I don't know if every single follower or every single viewer of your social media platform is necessarily going to be the well-wisher that you need. I don't know that. And so my wife and I were talking about this yesterday. Like I personally get scared and cringe and really genuinely, like in my heart, make a quick dua for all of these people who are sharing their lives on social media and they're sharing all of this really amazing good news, weddings, babies, houses, this, that. And I ask Allah to protect them because I really genuinely don't know that every single person who's watching is the well-wisher. And I don't know if my du'as are anything or enough, but that's my fear. And I think if I were to give anybody advice, it would be, there's no need to share everything in your life, okay? So Ibn Hajar, he says that wisdom can be detected by how discreet a person is. Now, there is a point where a blessing reaches a maturation stage. Like it's come to fruition, okay? I actually have a funny story about this. When I first got married, my wife, who I don't know if you guys have ever, if you know, but she's Bangladeshi. So we do not look the same skin color, okay? So it all makes sense. Everyone's like, whoa, this is not the racist Tuesday I was expecting, okay? It all makes sense in a second. Just pay attention. So we first got married, and my in-laws were very, very concerned about Nazar, right? Nazar, okay? So they were like, we're not going to tell anyone that this is happening. We're going to be very, very DL. Our nikah was in her house. Her Sunday school teacher did it. May Allah have mercy on him. He passed away. Her Sunday school teacher did it. It was very, very chilled out. Like I think 3 of her friends came. If anyone in the community asked, they're like, what happened? It's like, oh, you just met this guy. We were also really young, right? I was 18, right? Or 19. She was 18. So we were very young. So her parents were like semi-embarrassed, semi-scared. It was just crazy. All you need to know is that we won. Okay, so... So we're walking in the mall, and we were in, she grew up in Memphis, so we were in Memphis, we were in the mall, and it's a small community, like, it's not like a massive, there's not like 6 malls, there's like 1 mall in Memphis. So we're walking in the mall together, and we're just like walking by these stores, and we're holding hands, as couples do. And there's a Bengali auntie walking out of Claire's, and she sees us. Okay, now this news is not public yet. Okay? So we're like, it would look weird now if we like snatched our hands away. So we're like, you know what they say when you're on ice and your car is skidding? Turn into the skid. So we just like doubled down and kept walking. Now, why did I tell the whole joke about how our skin color is different? Because the auntie, mashallah, her heart was so pure. You know what she did? She couldn't, because my wife was like the head of like the Islamic like youth group. She was like, she was like up there in terms of her like community activism, community involvement. So this woman could not fathom that Mehreen was dating. And again, me, no kufi, regular street clothes, dating a non-Muslim white boy. Like. So she walks up to Mehreen and she goes, "Oh, is this your brother?" Because that was the only like safe, respectful conclusion, as illogical as it was. Even weirder than the skin tone is the holding hands. Like, how many of you have siblings? You're gonna walk in the mall just like fingers interlocked, giggling, like, what? No, not with my sister. That's insane, right? So the reason I'm sharing this is that there is a maturation point in the blessing where you no longer have to be paranoid, right? There's a stage, for example, maybe during going back to that analogy, the talking stage, right? If you meet somebody, you're talking to them, you don't have to tell everybody. Then maybe the bat is pakid, right? You get your engagement. You read your Fatiha. Okay, maybe still not the time to go talk about it. Don't change your last name yet. Okay? I know you're a little excited. Just relax. Okay? Now, once you get to the nikah stage, what's one of the conditions of nikah actually in Sharia is i'lan, is announcement. So once the blessing has matured and has reached the stage of maturation, now it's okay to start telling people. And part of the wisdom in that, subhanAllah, is that Allah and the Prophet ﷺ wanted us to see the blessing through. Okay? So it's interesting. We are taught to be discreet and careful, but we're not taught to be dysfunctionally paranoid. It's like carry the blessing to a point of maturation and then tawakkal Allah. Trust in Allah. Read your Quls, read your Ayatul Kursi, move on. Right? Move on. Like you get a new house, people ask you, like, hey, where do you live? Don't just keep, I don't know, we don't live anywhere. No, man, you've been there 3 years now. Like, have people over, right? Have people over, okay? Kids, you can't hide the baby forever, right? Eventually, you're going to have to show it, okay? It's going to be there. So the aqiqah, think about that. What is the wisdom of having aqiqah? Is inviting the community, make dua for the child. So there is a point where the blessing matures to where showing it is okay, and seeking blessing is okay. But even in that, there's an etiquette, which is what? Number one, you should actually remind everybody to make dua for this blessing. Remind them, because in that reminder, all of the hasad, the embers, like how charcoal leaves embers, all of the embers of envy are instantly extinguished. Because you're reminding everybody what? This is not me, it's Allah. So something happens, people come to your house, they say, oh, nice house. You say, make dua that Allah blesses it, please. Make dua that Allah blesses it. And then you can even return the blessing. May Allah Ta'ala give you an even better one, right? Imagine a spouse dua. Congratulations, may Allah give you a better one, right? Your spouse is right there. It might be tricky. May Allah give you what you need, all right? Inshallah, you got to be a little bit careful with that. So you change it. The other thing is that don't aggrandize and don't hyperbolize, but downplay it. Downplay. You don't have to deprecate. I'm using a lot of big words. Don't make it seem bigger than it is, but also don't lie and talk about how bad it is. Just be normal about it. Downplay it a little bit, right? Say, mashallah, this house is nice. Alhamdulillah. We're happy that we were able to find something. Boom. Right? Instead of being like, oh, you have no idea how much. Oh my God. All right, da-da-da-da-da. Like rattling off the property tax, the school, the zip code, the backyard, the square footage, the acreage. Habibi, like you're creating envy out of nothing. Just relax, downplay it, be smooth, right? Be smooth, Okay? Now, yes. One second. Let me just finish real quick because I know I'm already a tangent king, so we're going to run out of time. Al-Ghazali, he says in his Ihya, he says that envy is one of the most destructive diseases to the heart of the envier and the envied. Why? Because envy is one of the few diseases, subhanAllah. Envy is one of the few diseases that actually breaks apart the fiber of community. Like when people are scared of being envied, and when people have this habitual problem of envying, we no longer can even pray next to each other. We can't have dinner together. We can't show. Part of the communal benefit is to share these blessings with one another. Like, I don't want to have a house if I can't have you over for dinner. That's part of the blessing of me having a house. I don't want to have a car if I can't drive to your house and we go play basketball together, we go hang out. I don't want that. So a Muslim only wants blessings in so much as they connect you to other Muslims, right? So envy is one of those few diseases. Imam Ghazali says, subhanAllah, so insightful. He says envy is one of the most horrible, absolutely destructive diseases because it actually tears apart the fiber of a community. So we really all have to work hard individually and do that self-work of not falling prey to this. May Allah protect us. And then Ibn al-Qayyim, he says, and very beautifully, he says that although envy is real, the Prophet ﷺ, he said envy is real. He says, realize that Allah Ta'ala, not only did He allow envy to exist, but He also gave you the tools to protect yourself from it, right? Like a person who breaks into people's houses, those people exist. May Allah Ta'ala protect us. Allah Ta'ala also gave us security. He gave us locks and keys. He gave us security systems. And in Texas, some of you may have extra security in other ways, right? I'm from Chicago, so it's kind of not my thing yet. But the point being is, Allah did not only allow for potential harm to happen, right? As not as a source of harm, but Allah allows in the realm of free will, in the realm of choice. He allows people to choose. But He also gave us the remedy and the protection for those things as well. Okay, so what are some takeaways? Number one, guard your blessings. Not every success needs to be displayed. Concealing things for a time preserves the barakah, the blessing in it. Number two, wisdom in timing. This means two things. Number one, if you don't have something that somebody else has, it may just not be your time yet. That's okay. It may not be your time yet. And Allah Ta'ala is so merciful. One of my teachers told me something really beautiful. He said, Allah may actually withhold something from you because if He were to give it to you at that moment, it would actually ruin that thing for you in your life. And He holds for what? 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, 3 years? Because now that you've waited and you've developed, now that you've met this person or engaged with this thing or accomplished this goal or obtained this resource, now it's actually a benefit. It's not a detriment anymore. It's an asset, not a liability. There is a reality to that. There are some jobs that had you taken them earlier in your career, you would have failed miserably. But you got a couple jobs early on where you were able to develop your skill set a little bit, get a little bit, leave the imposter syndrome behind, get a little bit more confident, and then you step into that role, and now you're actually doing really well. Had you gotten that role 2 years ago, you interviewed for it, you didn't get it, and you were like, why? Because Allah knew that had you gotten it, that's it. You would have had it, 3 months, pip, you're fired. And now you can't do it anymore. So Allah said, wait, develop yourself a little bit. Now you can do this better. Marriage, same thing. There are some people that if you met them early on, oh, heck no. They wouldn't have even looked at you. But then what? Got a haircut. Got a lineup. Hit the gym a little bit. Got your bag right? And then that proposal looks a little bit better, right, brothers, right? So there's a little bit of a development stage that happens. There's wisdom and timing, okay? Number one. The second side of that, the other side of wisdom and timing, is the sharing of the blessing once the timing has matured, okay? And the last one is that we all need to be honest with ourselves that envy is real and we are potentially the victim as well as the criminal. And the only way that we will be protecting our community from envy is by handling both sides of that. Don't walk around paranoid that you're going to be the person who is envied. Walk around asking Allah to protect your heart from being one that feels this envy. If we can demonstrate grace and we can demonstrate like this beautiful compassion for people, and if we can celebrate people's wins publicly, it's contagious. And we need to do this. We need to be people that demonstrate how beautiful it is to celebrate other people's wins without the backhanded comments, without the weird rhetorical questions. How did you do that? What do you mean? It's interesting. When people say those things, they don't realize how quickly they're telling on themselves. We don't realize when we think those things and when we say those things, we don't realize how quickly we are exposing ourselves. But rather, we should be people, and especially if you have children, your children, they need to see you be the graceful person in a situation where you didn't get the thing that you were hoping for. Because that's how they will be able to do that with their friends. And they will go from being mean kids, honestly, to kids that are so loving and kind. Kids that are able to celebrate for other people, right? I saw a kid this weekend, the Run for Refugees for Dallas Muslim Run Club. I saw a kid that his best friend won they placed in their age division. And when I bumped into those kids, the one who did not place was like, oh my God, so-and-so, he placed, he won. As if this was the kid who won. Like celebrating that win. And even the kid who won was like shy. I was like, maybe, I don't know yet, And I thought to myself, how beautiful is it that you're able to see this child, right? 9, 10, 11 years old, whatever. And they've learned that it's actually cool to celebrate the win of another person. That's how we cultivate a community that doesn't struggle with envy, right? But think about, and I'm not trying to go down the rabbit hole here. Think about the conversations and comments that we hear growing up sometimes. May Allah bless our families. It's not on purpose, never. But think about culturally what was normal was to constantly compare with other kids, was to constantly talk about how successful another person was. And it was never in a way, not never, rarely was it in a way that was graceful. Sometimes it was just in a way that was outright venomous. And that carried forth now. So if you feel this within yourself, now's the time to start to work on it and to extricate that from your soul. May Allah Ta'ala make it easy. We'll go ahead and do questions now because we only have a few minutes left before Isha, and I don't want to squeeze the next hadith. So you had a question, Irma? And then I'm opening up the Slido, by the way. So if you want, you can go type in 30 and up, and the Slido will be there on slido.com. Okay, go ahead. Me? Oh, that auntie? Yeah, I told her, like, we're married, and she was like, oh, okay, and then she just walked away. I don't think she believed us, but hopefully now she does. 2 kids later. Anyways, anyone have any other questions while the Slido is loading? Sorry, I opened it up a little late, so the questions are populating now. Any questions regarding this or anything else? Yeah. So reframe that. So you're saying, basically, is there ever an envious experience that's actually beneficial? Okay, yes. There's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, very good. I'm actually really happy that you asked this. The Prophet ﷺ, he said that envy is impermissible. It's haram, except for in 2 cases where you're allowed to have envy. Now, there's also another concept in Islam called ghibta, which means like a healthy jealousy. Okay? And what's the definition of envy first? Imam Ghazali says that envy means that if you had the power, you would have that blessing and you would take it away from that person. So it's not just that I want that. It's not I want that also. It's I want that and I don't want you to have it. So envy typically occurs with like scarce resources. That's why people are envious usually in like relationships or like jobs where there's only one position. Because it's not that there's 100 positions available, right? There's one and 10 people are interviewing for it. That's going to be the subject of envy more than something that is attainable by many, right? Because 100 people can buy this object, okay, or this car. So envy, as Imam Ghazali defines it, is not only wanting something, but it's wanting the removal of that thing from somebody else, okay? So now that we've defined it, where is jealousy okay? Where is jealousy okay? The Prophet ﷺ, he said, in two kinds of people. This is so amazing. Man, he said jealousy is okay when it comes to, number one, the person who is kareem, who's generous. And the reason why is because it's actually really remarkable. This person, have you guys ever seen a person who's generous? And like, have you been the recipient of generosity? It's almost impossible to hate them. Like, you really have to be Voldemort, like properly, to hate someone who's generous. Like when you see someone who's truly generous, not boastfully generous, like truly generous, your heart is so, it's melted to the point where it does not possess the ability to have a negative feeling towards this generosity, okay? So the Prophet ﷺ said, when you see generosity in front of you, it's okay for you to say in your heart, man, I wish I could do that. I hope I can do that, okay? The second person that it's okay to be a little bit jealous of or envy light of is the knowledgeable person. When you see someone who knows their religion and that knowledge has impacted them and has given them maybe a quality of faith that you wish to also have, then it's okay. That is the two examples the Prophet ﷺ said are okay. Because why? Because also the knowledge of religion, if you're jealous of that, chances are you're not going to be a truly evil person. Evil people would not be jealous of knowledgeable people, right? They'd be like, you know, they would see this as a waste of time, aslan. So, yeah, that's why it's like envy light. The Prophet ﷺ, he was using it more rhetorically than he was literally. Yeah. Allahu alam. Good question. Okay, the questions are here now. How do you practice true sabr while waiting for what you want most, like marriage and a career? It's truly hard sometimes. Or is our rizq blocked? Good question. You know, practicing sabr for different people has is different in different languages, different ways, honestly. Some people are just very good at practicing patience and sabr through, I don't want to say distraction, but through changing your focus. You know, some people can practice patience by changing what they're focusing on. And they can instead, you know, put their mind towards a goal that is not the thing that is the cause of their irritation. Okay? That's one way. Another way, this is my preferred way, when I feel particularly impatient about something, is I try to be a person that reflects about what blessings I do have. And I try to immerse myself in those blessings and realize that I am actually sitting in the pool of gratitude that many other people have not yet taken a swim in yet. So I have things that people are praying for. Why on earth do I feel so irritated that I don't have exactly what I want, right? And then the last thing is you can logically kind of frame it. You can try to logic it through and say, maybe Allah Ta'ala hasn't given me this thing because there is some wisdom in it, right? Today, actually, my wife promised my kids something and then forgot, which happens because she's super busy, mashallah. She was at work. So they have a book fair at school, and my wife promised them that after school she would take them to the book fair, and which is hilarious because one of my kids can't really read yet. So she's getting there, mashallah. She's super smart, though. Wallahi, she's incredibly smart. So they were very upset. And guess who had to deal with it? The parent who picked them up from school. My wife is still at work, and they're just taking all their anger out on me. And I'm like, don't kill the messenger. I'm just picking you up, and I'm going to take you home and give you your snack. So we were driving, and they were kind of quiet. They were frustrated, I could tell. And my daughter was saying some really funny things like, yeah, well, it's just another promise that mama broke, right? I was like, oh, boy. I was like, oh, God, right? So kids say crazy things. That's why the angels don't write their sins yet. So we were like almost home. And I was like, is this a moment where I can teach my kids Aqidah? So I was like, okay, guys. They were like, what? I said, what would you say if you went to the book fair today and they didn't have anything that you liked? And then tomorrow morning they got a new shipment of new stuff and you didn't go because you didn't know and you already went and you didn't find anything you liked. but then tomorrow they got all this amazing stuff and all your friends bought it and you didn't get it. And they were like, well, we'd be kind of disappointed because we went today. I said, okay, so what happens in your mind if you tell yourself that Allah didn't let us go today so that tomorrow morning that new shipment arrives and we will be the first people that we will be able to buy those books and posters and whatever. And instantly my kids were like, oh, that's much better. And then they started like almost like self-talk consoling, like Mama's not so bad actually. Like maybe she knew. And I tried to basically teach them that this is actually a method that we should use as adults on how to deal with disappointment. That we should give ourselves the 1 trillion possible alternate realities that could have led to the reason being of why we didn't get this thing when we wanted it. Okay? So when it comes to waiting for something that you want most, do all of the above. Be grateful. Be patient. Cry to Allah. Ask Allah. Tell yourself that what you are waiting for is coming on the right time. And it will be the perfect moment when you get it. Whatever it is, right? I know marriage and careers are like easy, low-hanging fruit, but there's a lot. Children, right? Different opportunities, different moments. There's a lot of that. So work on that, inshallah. May Allah ta'ala make it easy for us. How do you get rid of having negative assumptions against people, family, or friends? Well, realize that everyone probably has negative assumptions about you. And how does that feel? Pretty bad, huh? Yeah. So if we want people to think of us with good thoughts, then we need to start thinking of people with good thoughts. So the way that we remind ourselves that other people are more good than they are bad is by realizing and asking Allah, oh Allah, allow people to only see my good and hide from them my bad. And realize that you are just as much at risk of being the subject of negative thoughts and feelings. If everybody had that same thought, then we would start to treat each other better. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anh, he said, this is how he thought. Think about this, right? He's a companion. Not only any, by the way, he's not just a companion. The Prophet ﷺ went on record as saying, he is the most knowledgeable companion about the Quran. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine like living, having that accolade? Having that about you said about like by the Messenger of Allah? How would you think about, like imagine if you heard someone else trying to talk about Quran, you'd be like, yeah, nice, that's cute. Come learn from the real one. You know what I mean? I mean, that's how I would, but I'm like, So Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he said, listen to this. He said, if sins had a smell, wallahi, you would not be able to sit next to me. If sins carried an odor, you would not be able to sit next to me. That's how he saw himself. One time, Abu Darda, he came to Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu anha. He said, I'm afraid I'm a hypocrite. She said, good. He said, what do you mean? She said, only hypocrites don't think that they're hypocrites. Like only bad people don't think that they're bad people. Good people are always aware that they may potentially have done something hurtful or wrong. And they live with that, not in a way that's paralyzing them with guilt, but in a way that grounds them with humility so that they are able to express the love that is needed in order to build community, to forgive people, to look past people. The Prophet ﷺ was so good at this. Some of the most inspirational stories we hear are him forgiving people that were wrong. Imagine, you and I can also carry that same inspiration if we do the same thing. May Allah Ta'ala grant us that. One more and then we'll end, inshallah. If someone asks you, oh, this is juicy, I like this. If someone asks you about a blessing and you know that they would be envious of it, is it permissible to lie? Next week at 30 and up. No, I'm joking. So, look. Lying is haram. Okay, that's the default ruling. In Sharia, there's a default ruling. Lying is haram. There are exceptions to this rule. One of those exceptions, principally, is when telling the truth would be more destructive than not telling the truth. So, for example, your husband tries to give a shot cooking dinner. He's like, how'd you like it? You're like, it was amazing. You don't have the heart to tell him that it tasted like nothing, right? Not enough salt, not enough this, medium rare chicken, whatever, right? You don't have the heart to tell him that. Your kid draws you a picture and they think that it needs to go up in the Louvre. And you're like, this might be the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life. I don't even know what it is. And you drew it on, your birth certificate. You're like ruining this important document. But do you like it, Baba? I love it. Do you know what it is? Exactly, I know what it is. Don't say it. It'll ruin the moment, right? Neither of us should say it. So you hang it up on your fridge, right? So in those moments, it's actually advisable to not be completely forthcoming with the truth, because why? Being really truthful in those moments is destructive. Okay? And this is not lying. We don't call this lying. We say that this is wisdom, right? Not being a person that would hurt feelings. So in this scenario, there's a lot of variables. You don't know that this person is going to be envious of this. Okay, let's assume that that's the default. But let's say that this person has definitively displayed to you and shown you that, yes, this is something that if it's brought up, maybe through another example or someone else's story, that they will have a lot of trouble processing. They will have a lot of issue with this. Then yes, in that moment, you don't have to be completely forthcoming about this blessing. Okay? However, be wise and realize that maybe it's not the right thing to do to completely and totally erase the truth from this moment, but rather to be very, very good at downplaying it 99%, because in the situation or in the instance where it does become manifest and apparent, then you might have a lot more explaining to do, right? So you don't want to be like that person who saved yourself at step 1 only to burn yourself at step 5. But there's ways that you can be wise, you can deflect, you can take, you can even just kind of cite personal issues. If someone asks you like, hey, so are you talking to anybody? You're like, I don't really want to talk about it. And then they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. You're like, no, it's okay. But like low key, you're engaged. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so you want to kind of like, just be smart about it, right? You can deflect, you can kind of push away, you can do this and that. Be smart, be wise. But this is only, again, if you have definitive understanding that this is going to be a struggle for this individual. And I want to remind everybody categorically, I'm going to say this very clearly. So, right, camera, everyone, do not walk around assuming that people are just envy monsters. That's not what this hadith is about. This hadith is less about the assumption of others and more about you being wise as a person yourself. That's it. Not about assuming from others, but being wise as a person yourself, okay? We ask Allah Ta'ala to protect us and to give us blessings. We ask Allah Ta'ala to allow us to be those people that are always wise with the blessings He has given us. And we ask Allah Ta'ala to protect us from ever feeling any envy or jealousy towards other people, but rather that we feel patience and gratitude towards Him and the blessings He has given us, and even from those He has withheld from us. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Subhanakallah bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Jazakallah khairan, everybody. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Inshallah, Isha prayer is in just about 4 minutes. So we're going to head over to the Musalla. If you're going to join us, please join us for prayer. The backjacks, these floor seats, if you can line them up from the front. And these folding chairs, if we could actually leave them until after Isha, we'll bring the dollies in here and stack them up, because every week we kind of fold them and then put them up against the wall, but it actually creates more work. So we'll bring the dollies in here and then we can stack them, inshallah, after Isha prayer. Jazakumullah khairan wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Oh, also, Halal Fusions is here. Please go get yourself a delicious Nahari taco, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Sure.